If you've been following my channel and know my story, you might remember the two so-called witches the cult used to mess with my life. The first, I'll call her Mary, out of respect for her memory. Either she was driven to suicide out of guilt over what happened between us, or she was murdered. The other one, I couldn't care less what she thinks about me because she's a lying, malicious woman who has information about my situation, but is withholding it. She's an unhinged chaos cultist who worships a 14-foot pale-skinned cannibalistic troll as God. So here's what happened between me and these two women. I'm hoping it might prompt some people to dig deeper and see that I'm a real person, that this really happened, and that real lives were wrecked by what this cult has done. I met Mary when she was 16. She looked cool walking down the street, so I struck up a conversation, and we became friends, always running into each other at the same spot. The same spot where 5 years later, I'd end up seeing the giant. After a couple of years of randomly running into each other, she was a senior in high school and almost ready to graduate. One day she asked me to walk her home, and we ended up talking for over an hour. At the end, she kissed me out of nowhere. And that was the start of an on and off relationship for the next couple years. Then she told me something disturbing, that we were like a real Romeo and Juliet, and that something terrible was coming for me. She even suggested we should die together while making love, so that when rigor mortis kicked in, they couldn't tear us apart, and we'd have to be buried together. Honestly, it was the hottest thing I'd ever heard a woman say, and by then, I was totally in love. And things got messed up. A local gang called the Hell Gods, connected to bricklayers, started stalking us. They drugged her with laced weed and did horrible things to her that wrecked her mind. I won't go into details here. They managed to drive a wedge between us that still haunts me. I was shattered, stopped working, stopped dating, and basically just wandered the streets day and night, consumed by thoughts of her and contemplating my own suicide. Then, after that homeless girl was raped and sacrificed, I started looking into it and happened to meet Linda, the other witch, and coincidentally, Mary's best friend and roommate. A city of 500,000 people, and Mary just happened to be best friends with the woman who would later try to poison me with fake acid lace that left me puking for days. Linda also somehow managed to delete every piece of photographic evidence I gathered showing a cult. Symbols tied to Azazel, the pale giant, whom, as she later admitted to me, she worships as her god. I was involved with Linda for about 5 months until someone told me she was spying on me for a cult. That's when I cut her off. Shortly after, I had that encounter with the giant, and then they set me up on a bogus felony case. Though I eventually got the case dropped, I still spent a year in jail fighting it. When I got out, I left Erie, thinking the cult nightmare would end if I just left that freak show of a city. But things only got worse when I moved to California, where I saw kids being herded into semi-trucks by cultists in police uniforms, and ended up getting stabbed 6 times. I eventually returned to the Erie area. Then, about a year later, I got an email from Mary. She admitted she'd been paid to befriend me, even paid to kill me. That's why she tried to burn me alive, one day while I was asleep. But I forgave her. She'd always been a bit crazy, and I loved her for it. In that email, though, she blamed me for the death of her first child, saying I could have prevented it. I told her I wasn't God, that I was sorry her baby died, and that child would be waiting for her in heaven. She died the very next day. They ruled it a suicide. But a few weeks ago, Linda sent me a video where it looked like Mary was being choked to death. I asked Linda how she got the video, and she said it was from an illegal spy camera. I pressed her. "Linda, how did you get this footage?" She refused to answer and only told me, "You still haven't figured it out. You're living in a Stephen King movie. That was IT, and it's eating children. By the time people realize what's happening, we'll already be in the middle of a nuclear war." That's when I blocked her, trying not to think about how everything in my life was a lie. Everything since the day I was fucking born. Today, I'm thinking about Mary again, and I needed to get this off my chest. I loved her, and I still do. After that thing kills me and Judgment Day comes, we'll finally be together, free from this nightmare. This cult may think it owns this world, but it doesn't. Satan may think he's the ruler, but he's in for a reckoning when my man Pots and Pans reveals himself and knocks his fucking head off with one punch. I still love you, Mary. Always.